A very good morning to you. This is Off the Shelf. I am David Batsoffen, and today we're talking about something that interests me, the Three Comma Club. And if you want to know why Three Comma Club, well, we'll find out in a moment from the authors, Jonathan Ancer and Gus Silber, who joined me this morning. And I'm going to claim this as a scoop, gents, because you launched the book in Johannesburg today, Thursday, 14th of May, 5:30 for 6 o'clock at Love Books in Rustenburg Road. And please RSVP because it's a very tiny venue and they don't want to squash tens of thousands of people in. The book published by Jonathan Ball, the authors Jonathan Ancer and Gus Silber. Gents, good morning. Welcome to you.
Thank you. Good morning, David.
Yeah.
The Three Comma Club, it took me a moment to realize where the name came from. But I don't want to spoil it for the readers. One of you tell me why three comma.
Yeah.
I think
So
Gus should,
the
yeah,
okay, I'll do that. Yeah.
sorry, I
So
think Gus should
so
say because it was his title, and I think
so the
it's
name comes
common.
from a sitcom called Silicon Valley, and it's obviously set in that part of San Francisco. And people in San Francisco who achieve billionaire status belong to what's known as the Three Comma Club. In other words, their net worth
Mhm.
at minimum is nine zeros separated by three commas. And
Right.
it's a running gag in the sitcom when somebody loses their membership when they go down to, let's say, 999 thousand million instead of 1 billion. So
Yeah.
hence a small club of people whose wealth is determined by three commas.
The interesting thing for me, Jonathan, I'll ask this of you, is that back in the day, and not so long ago, Bill Gates would have ranked on page one. I think he's now only appears on page 15 as a
Well,
sidebar remark.
he's still up there,
Yeah.
but it just shows how many billionaires have come up in the last couple of years, and I
Right.
think that that's related to sort of tech billionaires, where it's easier to scale up and
Hmm.
make billions relatively quickly. But yes, he's still up there. He's still a force to be reckoned with.
But now, are these real billionaires or is this paper money?
So, David, so we've used the famous Forbes billionaires list, which comes out on an annual basis and is regarded as the benchmark of billionaire net worth in
Mhm.
the world. Obviously, the money isn't actual. In other words, somebody like Elon Musk doesn't have access to his net worth of $839 billion. It's tied up in his companies, it's tied up
Right.
in various assets. But that is regarded as his net worth, and it's based on obviously Forbes's investigations and stock exchange prices and so on. So certainly it's not liquidity, but
Mhm.
somebody like Musk would have access to a heck of a lot of money. He just wouldn't have that much money liquid available to him. So yeah, it's tied up in various abstract forms.
I'd like to think, having now that you've told me that, Gus, that he only has like a Rand 75 that he can actually, when he puts his ATM card in the ATM and it comes back denied, access denied. That's what I want a camera on that.
It's comforting to think that way, that he's actually just as desperate as the rest of us for spare change.
Yeah, but I somehow doubt it very much. The book for if people are wondering about the book and going, oh, but it's boring. Who wants to know about people who have that much money? It's not, because when I started to delve into the book, there's a lot of interesting stories about people, how they've made their money, what they do with their money. And there's sort of good billionaires and bad billionaires, guys. Musk being, I suppose, a bad billionaire because he's been asked for charitable donations and he doesn't give. And then people like Taylor Swift, who have made her money only from being a singer and obviously selling the merch that goes with that. And I suppose in between there are people coming up and go. What happens to an ex-billionaire? Is there a no longer billionaire club, Jonathan?
I think there is. I think it's not a club that they want to belong to, but we did look at some billionaires who went from billionaires to three in the three comma club to the no comma club, and they had lost their money. because it had been made, Bernie Madoff had
Yes.
had conned people out of their money, and that's how
Yeah.
he made his billionaire fortune. And Sam, I've just forgotten his name, Freed, uh,
Oh, yes. I
uh,
know you. Name's gone
the
from me as
crypto
well.
guy. And so there are people who have lost their billions.
Yeah.
Um, and Yeah, I think it's a big shock. They actually went from billionaire status to sort of inmate status.
I was
They
about to say from a 15-bedroom mansion to a one-bedroom apartment, government apartment.
yeah.
Do people realize how much a billion actually is? I mean,
David,
can people, the
yeah.
regular people like the three of us, conceive how much money that actually is?
It's very difficult. In fact, I think for me, one of the challenges actually was just kind of conceiving what a billion is. And it's actually fairly confusing because there's the so-called long form and the short form billion. The long form billion is a million million. The short
Yeah.
form is 1,000 million, which is the basic standard now. But it took me quite a while to wrap my head around it. But the analogy that I like is that if you were to go back to the year 1 AD and you could
Mm.
earn $10,000 per hour every hour of every day, by 2026 you would have accumulated $178 billion. Now, that
Right.
is only a fraction of Elon Musk's net worth of 839 billion. So it's stratospheric money. It's
Yeah.
very hard actually to wrap your head around it. And in fact, it's actually unspendable money. In multiple lifetimes, you wouldn't be able to spend that much money, no matter how hard you tried. So yeah, the idea of a billion, the reason why it's like a fantasy thing, it's a
Yeah.
daydream thing. And I think one of the reasons is it's just very hard to conceive how much a billion actually is. It's a vast amount of money or time.
Because no
If you
matter how fast you spend, the interest will just replenish faster than you can spend it. And there's nothing that you can spend it on that will take, even if you bought a fleet of air, even if you bought Spirit Airlines, because they're now defunct, you would
Yes.
still have change left over after you've bought their entire fleet and rebranded it with your name.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, these are individuals with wealth exceeding the wealth of nations,
Yeah.
wealth exceeding the gross domestic product of most countries in the world. So that's why Musk is so incredibly powerful, and that's why he can say and do almost anything he wants to. He's
Yeah.
kind of got this immunity based on how wealthy he is.
Jonathan, I don't know about you, but I play a game every time I do a long road trip by myself. I pick a figure and then I try and spend it during the course of that drive. Now, the last one I've used was there was a supermarket chain that was being sued, and the money involved was 15 billion rand. I tried over two trips, which totaled probably 7 hours, to spend 15 billion. I got back. I think I still had 12.5 billion that I hadn't touched. And I'd paid off everybody that I know, all their debts. I'd bought houses and cars and everything I've ever wanted. It's impossible to spend.
It's just a huge amount of money, and this is why they buy islands, they buy private jets, they have extensive artwork collections, cars, fleets of cars. It is, I suppose, a challenge. I mean, there are some who are a little bit more charitable and do
Yeah.
give their money away, but it's just an unfathomable amount of money.
So what was the premise of the book? Who is the audience that you're hoping to attract?
Well, the brief was actually very broad from Jeremy Borain at Jonathan Ball that he simply
Mm,
wanted a book about billionaires.
right.
The working title was "Billionaires Are Doing It for Themselves," which is the clever title. The idea was just to explore, I think, from the perspective of the average, everyday, ordinary mortgage-paying, rent-paying citizen,
Right.
who these people are, first of all, where their money comes from, how they spend it, and some of the kind of perceptions that we have. We love some billionaires, we hate other billionaires, and the way billionaires are portrayed in popular culture is really quite
Mm,
fascinating. So I think the audience is hopefully very broad. Anyone who's ever actually done just what you were saying, which is try to imagine how what you would spend $1 billion on. So yeah, it's anybody who's ever been curious about what a
Mm.
billion is and also who billionaires are and how their brains function. They are human. They're just
Yeah.
like us, but they're also very different. They're a different kind of subspecies, a tiny niche of humanity that attracted our curiosity.
Because I remember when Warren Buffett was sort of giving his money away and he gave it to Gates because there was still the Gates Foundation. And he said they knew what to do with the money. And he said he was leaving nothing. He wanted, I think, to die broke, basically. And he was leaving nothing to his children. And I thought, what a misery. You're a multi-billionaire and you're leaving nothing to your kids. And then I've read up about the children, and they're millionaires, or they were when I last read, in their own right, because he taught them the value of money and of property and how to trade those two commodities, which I think is lacking. I don't know about you, Jonathan. I think it's lacking in our education, general education, that we're not taught about money. Money is like the big C. It's hidden away and nobody speaks about it. Because if you talk about it, it'll get taken away or you'll get it with a big
Yeah,
C, not with money. But it's
with
a
money.
hidden commodity. My parents never spoke to me. They just said, you mustn't spare, you must put something away, but they didn't say how much and why. So I didn't.
I, I know. I think I was probably the last person who should have written this book because I know absolutely nothing about money. And when I told my father about it, he really laughed and he said, do they know who they've got? But I think you're right. It's money is something that we kind of talk about in hushed tones.
Yeah.
We don't we should be talking more about it and becoming a little bit more literate about money and I think yeah I think there is a sense of that it is something that we should not be sort of speaking openly about. And maybe that's why it's so refreshing about these billionaires because they're flaunting their wealth. They want us to know how much money they've got. Um,
But then again, with them, is it an everyday, if you and I were to win the lottery, you dash out and do whatever you want to do with the money. But with them, that money is there constantly. It's not going to disappear. Well, a lot of it might disappear, Gus. Specifically with the tech guys. Musk has been up and down. And he wakes up in the morning and he's lost 100 million dollars. And does it really matter? Because in 15 seconds he's going to make that money back.
That's right. I mean, at that level, it's kind of like monopoly money. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
real.
Does it come
And
with a
it
get out of
fluctuates.
jail free card though?
Yeah. Well, hopefully for some
Not for
people, yeah.
Bernie Madoff, it didn't.
uh,
No, no. So it kind of and it fluctuates enormously, just as the wealth of nations fluctuates
Yeah.
enormously. But you're quite right. I mean, does it really matter? It certainly does matter to the people like at the top 10 of the
Mm.
Forbes list. And famously, it matters hugely to Elon Musk, who was desperate to be number one on the list. And when he overtook Jeff
Forever.
Bezos, he kind of he crowed about it. He said he wanted to send Jeff Bezos a big statue of the number two. You're second,
Yeah.
I'm number
Send,
one.
send him a
So
silver medal.
that's right. Absolutely. Second place is first loser, as some people
Yeah.
say in sport. But absolutely, I mean, it's kind of meaningless. And
Yeah.
Larry Ellison once said that at that level, money is meaningless. It's just a row of figures. So what it actually does mean is that you have the concrete ability to spend and to do what you want with your
Mm.
money. But at the end of the day, it is just a row of figures on a spreadsheet somewhere. And I think that's why it's also fascinating to us because we kind of, we count every penny. We try and
Yeah.
budget. We try and get through the month. Those of us who live from paycheck to paycheck. For billionaires, it doesn't really matter. They can lose a fortune and they can still have a fortune.
Yeah.
So that's why it's kind of fascinating. Their idea of money is very different to the everyday person's idea.
Now you talk in the book about the guy that put his elbow through a Picasso and then sold it for more than he.
Yes. Yeah.
But it was the
Yeah.
same with that Banksy that was auctioned in
That's right.
London. And then the moment the hammer fell, a shredder shredded half of it and the guy sold it for more than it was worth,
Yeah,
or more
this is
than he
one of the
paid.
things that I was particularly fascinated by as a very, very modest, small scale collector of artworks. You know, art has a value that is assigned by the market.
Yeah.
And if the market says it's worth this much money, that's what it's worth.
Mm.
And the value actually goes up if the artwork has a story associated with it, which is what happened with Picasso. But the curious thing for me, and I may be wrong, I haven't seen any evidence yet, is there are no billionaire artists. There are
No, they
billionaire
never.
art collectors, but the people who make the art,
No,
they
they only
don't
make
come
the.
anywhere near that, which is
No,
very
they only
unfair.
make the money when they're dead. We know this.
Exactly,
You've got to die
exactly.
first. The
Yeah.
best would be
Yeah,
to now with AI, Jonathan, you could probably fake your own death. The price of your works skyrockets, and then sort of 3 years or 5 years down the line, you go, "Hello, I'm back, and now I'm a billionaire of my own work. To hell with all of you."
Well, that's taking conceptual art to a new level.
Yeah, indeed it is. Did you guys have fun looking for the stories behind the money, so to speak? Like the fax machine sales lady who cut off her pantyhose and became a multi-billionaire because of that.
yeah,
Those type of stories is what interest me when I read a book like this. It's not just about the numbers.
yeah,
And my goodness me, page one, there were numbers there that I've never seen in my life. I tried putting them into my
yeah.
smartphone. It just laughed at me and said, "I'm sorry, I don't have enough noughts."
Yeah. So I mean, there's we kind of draw the line between billionaires who make their money from being born into the right family.
Yeah.
That's kind of the privilege and the luck of
Yes.
the lottery, of genetic lottery, and people who are so-called self-made, who kind of either come from rags to riches or have a bright idea. In the case of Sarah Blakely, the inventor of Spanx. I mean, she went from being a door-to-door fax salesperson to very quickly becoming a billionaire through this invention of hers, Spanx.
Mm.
And if you look at the Forbes list and you go through the list of billionaires, you can kind of pinpoint this person made their money through family legacy. This person made their money through a fantastic stock deal at a tech company. But the best stories are those of people who come from fairly ordinary upbringings and
Mm.
who work their way up to a billionaire status. I think those are more interesting than people born into the kind of Getty dynasties and so on and so
Yes.
forth. Yeah,
Because that's, as you say, that's just genetics.
that's right.
You could be the most stupid person on the planet, and as long as
Yeah.
and those trusts are managed, I should imagine, by people
Yes,
who are far more money savvy than you will ever be.
that's
So
right.
they
That's
have
right.
they have limited access. But as you say, somebody who comes up with something and then makes herself a billionaire. But with that in mind, given where we find ourselves today from a tech point of view, what happens to these billionaires if we go back to the barter system? If money becomes valueless and somebody that perhaps is a tradesman can go to a billionaire and say, "Listen, I need to do X. I will trade you. I will fix your electrics, and then you will pay off my debt," type of thing. Or there's some barter and money is actually taken out of the equation.
I,
Well,
I, I,
there's a famous story, if I can just quickly say this. There's a famous story of a guy who came to Facebook and did some basically manual labor, and he was
Mm,
given the option of being paid or getting Facebook shares, and he
mm.
very wisely took the shares. So
Yeah.
yeah, barter does exist. Yeah.
There's also a case, Jonathan, I'll come back to you in a moment. Don't forget what you were going to say, please, like me. There was also the guy, the book was called The Red Paperclip, if I'm not
Yes.
mistaken. And
Yeah,
he
that's right.
traded a paperclip because
That's
he
right.
wanted to make a movie or a documentary. And he went through a series of trades until he
Exactly.
got the cash to make the
Yeah.
documentary, which was about the paperclip.
That's right. Yeah, he basically traded the paperclip up for a big
Correct.
mansion. And
Correct.
that was an experiment in exactly what you're saying. Can we go back to some kind of system that takes money out? So it
Yeah.
is possible. It's a bit of a novelty. And I do think in everyday life, a lot of people do get by on bartering us,
Yeah,
actually.
I think it's because
Yeah.
it's coming back to that because there
Yeah.
are people with skills that don't have the
Yeah.
money and people with money who don't have the skills.
That's
And
right.
the trade-off can be a trade-off can be worked out.
Yeah.
Jonathan,
Yeah.
you had a story to share. I'm hoping you still
Yes, yeah,
remember it.
in Cape Town, I think it's actually sort of around the world, but it was started by, or one of the founders was this bloke called Tim Jenkin, who famously escaped from prison,
Hmm.
but he founded the system called the talent exchange, and it's trying to get people who aren't economic in the sort of
Hmm.
our economic world to get into the economy, and it's
Right.
based on an exchange of talents. So you don't have to have money. In
Hmm.
fact, there's no money involved, but
Right.
you swap your talents for other people's talents, which is quite an interesting concept. And I think it's gone all around the world, and it's quite big in Cape Town. There are a lot of people who
Really?
participate in. Yeah.
Okay, well, something I will look into. Um, I don't know what my bank manager will think about that, but I don't care anymore. I really don't. You know what they say, if you owe your bank 1,000 rand, you got to worry. If you owe them 1,000,000 rand, let them worry. Are there any stories? The book that we're talking about, folks, if you've just joined, is called The Three Comma Club. It's published by Jonathan Ball and it's written by Jonathan Ancer and Gus Silber. I'm taking, just before we go back to the book and the question I was going to ask, your names appear here in alphabetical order. Am I correct?
Yeah.
That's
On,
correct. Yes.
just checking, just checking. Um, Are there any stories that either of you had that didn't make it into this book, but could perhaps make it into another book? The 3 Comma Club Revisited, perhaps.
Jonathan, what do you think?
What was interesting, and I think that this happened to us quite a lot, is that we would go down some road and we would find these people as we were doing some research, and we would
Yeah.
get distracted by that person. But I do think that there was nobody that I feel that we left out from
Mm.
the research that we did. I mean, I
Right.
think there are lots of people, and it changes, because it's such a an issue that's in the world all the time. I think it's constantly changing.
Yeah.
But joining and billionaires dropping out, and so I think there will always be billionaires to write about, new billionaires, fresh billionaires, and dramas with billionaires.
Yeah. The
Um,
youngest billionaires.
Yeah,
I should imagine are the tech guys in their early
yeah.
20s that have sort of
yeah.
that enormous wealth. I just felt for that poor guy in the UK who lost his Bitcoin key in a
Yeah,
landfill. I don't know if he lost it or if it fell into a waste paper basket. But if
yeah,
I w- if somebody else, if hired help had lost it, that hired help would have
yeah.
still been running.
Yeah, no, that's a sure. It's one thing to fantasize about getting $1 billion and what you would spend it on. It's quite another thing to have a constant nightmare on the $1 billion that you actually lost. So
Yeah.
this poor guy was cleaning up his study and he put his hard drive into a black plastic bag as a spring cleaning thing.
Mhm.
And his partner saw the bag and thought it was destined for the rubbish dump. So she took it, and needless to say, their partnership broke up. But he tried for several years to get permission to unearth his hard drive in that landfill, and eventually the council got really fed up with him, and they announced that they were actually going to be covering the landfill and turning it into a property development. But this money slipped from his fingers. He would have been one of the world's wealthiest Bitcoin billionaires.
Yeah.
And also, once again, to go back to what you were saying, David, it's a good example of the meaninglessness of money
Yeah.
because at the time, the Bitcoin was worth next to nothing, a few dollars. But when he checked it again and he saw the figure, he thought, I'm rich. And then he suddenly realized that he lacked the
Not only
encrypted key. Yeah, yeah. So
not only
Bitcoin,
was he
Warren Buffett
poor, but
said
he was
Bitcoin is
single again.
meaningless. Mhm.
Not only
Yeah.
No,
was he
poor
poor,
guy.
but single.
He's
He tried to buy the landfill,
I
That's
can
right.
imagine, but with what? He has no
Yeah.
money. He is in the
Exactly. He
Try
would
landfill.
to
only have been able to pay
cut a
if he got the
deal.
Bitcoin.
Yeah. I still have to say, I do not understand Bitcoin and blockchain. To me, a
Yeah.
blockchain is something that you use to winch heavy material in a factory, you know. And Bitcoin, what is it? A bit of what? Um,
Yeah.
I see some of the supermarkets here in South Africa are now accepting Bitcoin as a way of paying for your shopping, which
That's right.
fascinates me because I don't know, half of those cashier people probably have no idea what you pay. What are you paying with? There's no money, there's nothing. You're
Yeah.
showing me a picture.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, no, it's basically it's a bit of an illusion. I mean,
Yeah.
there certainly have been people who've made their fortunes in Bitcoin
Yes.
and have become billionaires, but it's regarded very largely in the sort of serious money community as non-money. It's
Yeah.
crypto as a whole is an asset class, but it's currently down. It's currently in
Mhm.
a bearish phase, so it's lost some of its luster. But even so, if you got in early you would very likely have been a billionaire if you
But
picked up
Gus,
enough
you as
Bitcoin.
a an art collector, and you mentioned that a moment ago. When was it NFTs came out and everybody bought those
Yes,
pictures of clowns or something and they paid a
that's right.
fortune for, and sort of two
Yeah,
minutes later it was worth 50 cents. And people are
that's
going,
right.
"Ooh, oh,
Well,
we've lost all this money now."
yeah, that's actually the exact opposite of Bitcoin. So Bitcoin started as kind of worthless, as being a few cents
Yeah.
per Bitcoin, and it rocketed into being worth billions. NFTs started out being sold for ridiculous amounts of money and then reverted to being worth nothing. And as someone who loves art and is interested in it, I could never kind of figure out what the value was of a digital kind of token
Right.
representing an artwork, and that you have the right to say that this is your artwork. It's obviously meaningless, and there was a massive craze. A lot of people thought NFTs were the next big thing, and of course, a lot of Schadenfreude afterwards, as in, you spent X amount, now you've got
Yeah.
now it's worth $20. So it comes back again to like, what does money really mean? And also, crucially, what does art actually mean? It's
Right.
very hard to put a value on an art, and art fluctuates incredibly, and the
It's
markets the
subjective.
market can go up and down. Yeah.
Yeah. We're running out of time, would you believe? This is the beauty when I get guests like you that we can just chat and have fun. Question for both of you. If you were billionaires, you woke up tomorrow, you checked your bank statement and you went, "My goodness me, where did that come from?" Um, what would be your first purchase and why?
Yeah.
Who wants to go first?
Let me think about that.
Because
Yeah.
I've always, while you're thinking, Jonathan, so that we don't have dead air, I've always wondered if you wake up and there's this sort of money in your account that I don't know is dropped from an alien, perhaps. Your bank has to report it to SARS. So
Yeah.
my game now includes how to hide the money that I don't have so that
Yeah.
SARS doesn't find out.
Yeah.
Because it's impossible. You can't deposit a billion. Somebody can't put $1 billion into your account without there being some accountability, unless it's unseen money, which I believe
Yeah.
aliens can do. They can put money in your account that nobody can see. So, what would your first purchase be,
Yeah.
Gus? Well,
I,
Jonathan
that
thinks,
yeah, David, I think I would definitely look for experiences rather than things. I
right.
think I would kind of, in the back of my mind, I've always wanted to go to Tokyo. I've always wanted to go to Vietnam. I've always wanted to go to certain parts of the USA. So although I've been able to travel a lot as a journalist, that's the first thing that could pop into my mind. It's time
Mhm.
for a
Okay.
road trip, a fantastic road trip through South Africa. I would go for travel rather than things.
Great stuff. And you could buy the best RV on the planet.
Of course, yeah, yeah,
With a
yeah.
helicopter on the top and a vehicle that you can tow behind. Let's go large here, Gus. Let's not skip on how you're traveling. This is not economy class.
Absolutely,
Jonathan, have you come
yeah.
up with something?
It's very difficult. I think what I'd love to do is I would buy a media house
Mm.
and I would start my own media franchise, my own media powerhouse.
Gus, do you
Um,
think he's got room for both of us in this powerhouse media system of his?
I think Jonathan, that's a fantastic idea. I think
Yeah.
that coming in as the next course Becker to me is a great way to spend your $1 billion.
The
We
book
need you for that.
the book we've been chatting about is the Three Comma Club, published by Jonathan Ball, written by Jonathan Ancer and Gus Silber. The book launches, the Joburg launch is this evening at Love Books. Um, and why don't you go along? You can meet them both. You can buy the book, which gives them a little bit of money on that ladder to their first billion each. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. It's been an absolute blast chatting to both of you. I hope the book, sells in leaps and bounds. I really and truly do. And who knows, I might even see you tomorrow evening. Weather
Thank you very much,
dependent.
Dave. Thanks
Gus
so much.
Silber, Jonathan Ancer, thank you very much for joining me. This has been Off the Shelf. I've been David Batsoff, and until the next time, bye for now.